Hello everyone and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. I have something quite different for you today. I fancied trying something new and I knew just the thing. I recently came across a fabulous channel called Mary in the Fairyland. Mary makes the most amazing fairy houses and she left me totally inspired to try and make my own. So today you'll be seeing me make a Christmas fairy house using a glass bottle, clay and lots of other bits and bobs. If that sounds like fun, stay tuned and enjoy the video. Here is the most important element of today's project, my glass bottle, which my husband very kindly emptied for me. After removing the label, the glass bottle was ready to become a house. But before I could do that, I needed to construct the roof because I needed to see how far down the glass bottle the roof would sit before I could start covering the glass bottle. So that is why I'm starting with the roof. If you're a returning viewer to my channel, you'll know that most of my videos are tutorials, but this one is not so much a tutorial, it's more for your inspiration. And I think by watching it, you'll be able to work out most of what I've done for yourself, and you don't really need me to give you instructions. But I will pop up with some information now and again, just because too much music can be a little bit too much, can't it? So yeah, we'll have a bit of music today and a bit of talking. This did end up being quite a massive project for me. It really was. So let's see how long this video ends up being. I'm not quite sure. With the base of the roof completed, I was able to put it onto the glass bottle so I could see how much of the glass would be exposed. I then measured it so that I could make a template for the rectangle I would be making out of clay. I used air dry clay. This is Das air dry clay, but I have seen it done with polymer clay, and they even put it all in the oven to cure, all on the glass bottle, and that was fine. But I didn't need to do that because I was using air dry clay. I cut half a block and hoped that that would be enough, and as you can see I'm using some Hessian underneath because I thought it would give a really nice texture. In the end that didn't matter so much, but you don't know that until you know, do you? Anyway, let's get on with this. After rolling and cutting the rectangle, you just saw me roll some more clay and cut out a circle for the base of the bottle. I added some slip to that, and here you can see me adding the rectangle around the bottle. It wasn't quite big enough, but it didn't really matter. I squashed it and made sure both the sides would meet, and I used slip again to make sure that join was permanent. Once I'd finished joining the clay and smoothing it out, it didn't have to be perfect, but yeah, just making sure it was joined, I was ready to start adding windows and doors. I cut some out on my laser engraver and cutter. It's the WeCreate Vista that I used, and you'll see that in a minute. But don't panic if you don't have a laser cutter. You can make your windows in a different way. You can cut them out of cardboard if you want to, or you can purchase the kit from Mary in the Fairyland. She sells all the kits to make these, so yeah, you don't have to make everything from scratch. Like I said, I was just inspired by a picture. I hadn't even realised, that she makes the kits before I started. And so, yeah, that's really good because I can tell you all about it and you can go and get the kit if you want to. But as you know, I like to do everything from scratch and I do like using my laser cutter. And here it is cutting away. I have sped it up. It does take longer than what you're seeing here. And the window design I downloaded from Creative Fabrica. You can get loads of designs on there if you want to, but you could make your own in the design space. As I just said, I downloaded the window, but I did adapt that. I split the image and used the arch shape to make my own door and window frames in the WeCreate creative space. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of both. And there we have all kinds, some big ones, some small ones and some round ones. With all the windows in place, you can now see why I was saying earlier on that I didn't really need that Hessian imprint on the clay, because I'd made such a mess of it, I needed to kind of disguise all the mess that I'd made. So I'm using this tool here just to add kind of texture all over it. I don't know how you would describe that texture. Maybe like it's built of stone, like little stones. Yeah, I just thought if I do that all over, the fact that I've done so much work on it with my fingers, smoothing it out, it would all be disguised a little bit. However, I didn't do it completely, and you do see some of that Hessian print, so it wasn't completely lost. The clay needed a couple of days to harden, and we'll come back to the house part shortly, but for now, let's do the roof. The house by Mary in the Fairyland, which inspired me originally, was a wooden roof. She used lots of bits of wood, but I didn't have all of that, and so I decided to use cardboard, which is something we all have, isn't it? And I thought if I make it all rustic and crumple it up a little bit and make lots of little tiles, that might look really good. And so that's what I did. I cut lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of rectangles out of my cardboard and stuck them on with hot melt glue. And if you're going to be using hot melt glue, I would say wear some gloves of some description if you don't want to ruin your nails. My nails are already ruined. That's another story. But my nail varnish didn't last very long with the hot melt glue. It is tough stuff, and you will get into a right mess. And if you can't stand those stringy bits that you get with hot melt glue, avoid it completely, because you're going to get that stuff everywhere, and it did drive me crazy after a short while. But it was worth it in the end, because I thought the roof looked brilliant when it was finished. It was a little bit top heavy, and we did remedy that later on, so don't worry if you're already thinking that roof's a bit too big. Well, I did balance it all out later on after a suggestion from my husband. Right, once the roof was finished, it was time to make a chimney. And here, as you can see, I'm just rolling up some cardboard to make my chimney. I covered it in some metal sheets, like craft metal. And yeah, that worked really well, and it was nice and easy. You know, the thing about loving arts and crafts and accumulating all the stuff that goes with it, over the years you end up having everything you need, especially when you get to my age. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. At 52, I've had quite a lot of years of collecting my supplies. And this metal, I don't even know if you can still get it. I'm sure you can. But gosh, it must be. I'm not lying here. This metal must be 20 years old, and I've only just got around to using it again since the first time when I first bought it. That's the great thing. If you don't throw things away and you've got space to, to keep them. I really don't have space, but you make it, don't you? You make your space. You have to get creative to be a creative person and hoard all of your stuff, because it's scary, isn't it? When you think, oh, what happens if I get rid of it? You know, when you're having a tidy up, you think, the thing is, if I get rid of this or give it to someone, I know I'm going to need it next week. So you keep things for years and years and years. And yeah, I started on a waffle there, didn't I? Just looking at that metal that I found. And the good thing is I'm quite organised. And yeah, I haven't used it in 20 years, but I knew exactly where it was. Anyway, if you're still with me after all of that, let's get the chimney stuck on. What I did was I raised a flap there, one of the tiles, so that I could sneak it underneath, and then I glued all the little bits together, if you get what I mean. I glued it all on and then covered those up with some more tiles to disguise it. And I'm not going to show you it all because I'm just looking and seeing that we're 15 minutes into the video and we're not even halfway through this project yet. So I'm going to have to start editing this down a little bit. Otherwise, I don't know if my iPad can take such a big file. We will see. I don't think I've done such a long video in absolutely ages. Let's see how we get on. I managed to get about 2 hours of work into that piece of music. So now we have everything painted and everything assembled. I don't think you saw me making these little roofs, but yeah, they were another thing I cut on my laser cutter from WeCreate, and I think they finish off the windows nicely. So I repeated the process for all of the windows, and if you're thinking it might be looking a little bit plain and boring at the moment, don't you worry. Everything's going to change soon, because remember, this is a Christmas themed house and there's going to be some snow involved. And speaking of which, here are the first options that I came up with. I was waiting impatiently for Amazon to arrive with my fake snow, and I just kept getting notifications saying it was going to be later in the day, but I wanted it then. So I tried out some different glitters that I had, and to cut a long story short, I wasn't really happy with any of them when I added them to the roof. So I don't think I'm going to show you all the experimentation. You will see the results in just a moment. But what I did end up finding was my white flocking powder from my Tabba Squishy kit from Let's Resin, and I ended up using that. But yeah, I tried out all the different glitters first, and you can see here that I'm just trying out the first one. But like I say, I'm going to cut the rest of that out and we'll move on to the flocking powder and see how that works. I wanted a thick band of snow at the bottom of each roof tile, and so here you can see I'm using the hot melt glue again and sprinkling on the flocking powder, and that looks okay, but I wasn't quite happy with it like that. And what I ended up doing was completely covering the whole of the roof with PVA glue and sprinkling flocking powder over it after I'd done each of the edges of the tiles, because I liked that depth right at the bottom of the tile. But I felt like I wanted most of the brown to be dusted with snow, and that's what I ended up doing. I don't seem to have any footage of me doing that for some reason, but yeah, you're all creative people if you're watching this, so you've used your imagination by now, haven't you? You'll see the roof all finished very soon. So let's get on with the next step. So we're back to the house now, and I'm happy to tell you that my artificial snow finally arrived. And it looks like coconut, doesn't it? Desiccated coconut. And it got everywhere. Honestly, what a mess I made. But it made such a big difference to coat all the windowsills and those little roofs with the artificial snow, and I loved the finished result. I had such fun doing this, and you could see the transformation happening so quickly. However, I did find that once the hot melt glue had, cooled down, a lot of it just brushed off. So I did need to revisit each one and do a second application. But you can see what a difference it's making already, can't you? Anyway, at this point, I was able to show my husband the house with the roof on. I'm not showing you yet, because obviously it's not finished. You've got to save the best till last, haven't you? But I showed my husband and I said, do you think that roof is too big? And he said, well, yeah, it's a bit top heavy. So I said, well, what am I going to do? I can't start again. It's taken me too long already. And he said, well, how about making a base for the house that's kind of a bit heavier and wider and kind of balance out that heaviness that's on the top? And I said, what a cool idea. But it gave me another 2 days of work. But I did it. And so let me show you what I did about making a base. I decided the best and most economical way of doing it was to make lots of rings of wood, which I could stack up to make like a little hill. And so that's what I did. All of those rings fitted inside each other in 2 circles, 2 different lots. And so it didn't take up that much wood, really. But yeah, if you don't have a laser cutter, you won't be able to do it like this, but I'm sure you will be able to think of another way of making a base. This is just one way, and it's the way that I decided on. So I'm going to be using some lights on this house. I'm actually going to be using 3 sets of lights. And the lights I chose were those ones that are connected to like a cork shape to go in bottles so that you can do your illuminated bottle art, and I thought they might work really well for this project. And that is why I have 2 holes in the base, because I'm going to have 2 of those light LED cork things in those 2 holes. And the reason for that is that I'm going to have 2 Christmas trees in the garden with lots of nice lights on. So that's why there's 2 holes in that base. As it turns out, when I tried putting the LED cork thing, which you'll see later, through those holes at the top, the whole thing wasn't tall enough, so I needed to elevate it, and that's why I went and found these corks in my bits and bobs box, and I stuck corks all the way around the edge, because I thought when they're painted, they'd look like bits of wood for the Fairyland forest theme. And yeah, I thought that worked really well. It did when it was painted anyway. I painted this all brown. Anyway, here are the lights that I was trying to describe, which I should have just shown you in the first place, shouldn't I? So one of these is going to be illuminating the bottle, and it will fit in the top of the bottle. And 2 more of them will fit in those holes in the base that I was talking about, and they'll be for the Christmas trees. So I'm unwinding this now because I'm going to be making one of my Christmas trees. And any Christmas tree for a fairy can't be a Christmas tree that you or I would have, could it? It's got to be something it would find in the forest. And so I decided to use pine cones for my Christmas trees. I simply wrapped the wire around and around into all the grooves until all the LED lights were used up. It was quite a long process, and in the end I did find that it was easier if I turned the lights on so I could see where I'd been and where I needed to distribute the lights a little bit better. When that was done, I brushed it all over with PVA glue and then sprinkled fake snow all over it. I really didn't like being able to see all of those wires, so in the end I used my trusty glue gun to add some glue and then some beads, and the beads went over the top of the LED lights, so when the LED lights went on it added some colour and it looked much more like a traditional Christmas tree. And now it's starting to take shape and you can get a glimpse of what it might look like later on. But you'll have to imagine the base covered in snow, which it will be very soon. But first of all, I wanted to see how it would look. But I also wanted to position a fence going down the slope where the path would be. And so that's what I'm going to do now, is make a fence. Earlier on that day, I'd collected a whole selection of sticks whilst taking Honey for a walk, and so I had everything I needed to make a little fence. So I broke up all the sticks so that I had the fence posts and just glued them on with a hot melt glue gun. Good. I tell you what, I don't think I would have been able to make this without that glue gun. And here it was afterwards, and it looks extremely messy, but imagine it all covered in snow and all of that glue will be hidden. So not to worry about the mess. It's getting there. So here I'm just drawing around where the house is going to go, because I'm going to be covering the base with snow now, and I wanted to know where not to put glue. Okay, so I'm going to leave this bit in because it's all part of the story, but it didn't work. I used very cheap PVA glue that I had. It's not my usual PVA glue. I used this one because it was a lot runnier, and I thought it would be easier to cover the base with it because it was a lot thinner and more fluid. But it turned out to be absolutely rubbish PVA glue, and I tried hard then not to use a much harsher word instead of rubbish, because honestly I wasn't happy. I smeared it completely with this PVA glue. I covered it in my artificial snow and left it to dry, and it took ages. And then all the snow just came off. It didn't stick. So, yeah, that's why I'm leaving this in, because when I show you the bit that did work, you're going to wonder why it's already got bits of snow on it. And that's why I had to have another go. And so let's jump ahead to my second attempt, and I'll tell you what I used. Jumping forward, here we are. After the failed attempt, I've got my modelling paste, which I love. I'll link to it in the video description. And I'm going to smooth it on with a spatula. The reason I decided to use that was because I thought it would be very difficult to try a stronger glue, which I did have, to, brush it on over all that fluff. I thought that would be a bit of a nightmare. So that's why I decided on the modelling paste with my spatula. And I also thought that because it's nice and thick and it goes on thick, the fluff or artificial snow would press into it much better and stick better, and it did. This worked absolutely wonderfully, and actually I think it would have been good if I'd used it on the roof, It might have worked better, but anyway, you learn as you go along, don't you? And in case you're wondering why I'm using glue in this area and not everywhere else, I wanted it to still look like steps here, because this is obviously leading up to the house, and I thought it would be nice if it looked a little bit like people had been going up and down the steps and there wasn't as much snow. So yeah, that's why I didn't use the modelling paste there. Moving on, I was already very, very late with my video, but I had a brainwave. I decided it would be really nice to be able to see fairies through the windows, like you do. And so I created this image with the AI tool on the Canva app, and I printed it out onto transparency film with my laser printer. And it just about fitted. I kind of had to guess the size, but it worked okay. And yeah, once I'd cut it out, I rolled it up. And to do that, I used my long hemostats, and I use those normally for stuffing like legs and arms when I'm making dolls, because I love doll making. I thought if I wrap it around those, I'll be able to poke it down into the bottle quite easily. So that was the plan there. Right, so you're probably wondering why the door isn't there anymore. Well, when I'd been looking through the windows, oh, look at those, don't they look magical? Anyway, when I'd been looking through the windows, I realised that you could see the inside of the door and how messy it was from my painting. So I took it off to paint the inside properly, so that's why it wasn't on there. But at least now you can have a proper look inside at the fairies. And yeah, when I was little, I would have found that so magical, just looking through the windows and discovering that there was fairies inside the house. I love the idea of that, that magical idea, and I think my granddaughter will love that too when she visits at Christmas time, and I'll tell her to look through the windows. It's hard to film it. I did kind of capture it there. But yeah, in real life, when you get your eye up to it, you can really get a good look at the fairies. So we're nearly at the end now. Phew! And after I'd finished messing about putting fairies inside, I realised there was still something missing. And of course, what does any fairy house need in the middle of winter at Christmas time? They need a snow fairy, of course, in the back garden. So here I'm rolling 2 balls of polymer clay to make my snow fairy. I then added some little mini eyes that I had I think they're for like stuffed toys. think I got them for making squishies to see if that'd work, and it didn't. Anyway, I thought I'd put those in because it's nice and easy, but it did end up looking more like a kind of snow fairy alien, or maybe like, it reminds me of Grogu. If any of you watch The Mandalorian, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like a Grogu, snow Grogu fairy. Oh dear. Anyway, when I'd finished doing that, I made a carrot nose to make it look so much more authentic, and I put it in the oven to bake. It is all ready and cooked. It just needs its wings now to make it into a fairy. I cut some out on my WeCreate Vista laser cutter. If you don't have a laser cutter, you could make paper wings, but yeah, I had everything set up, so I just cut those out, and they worked really well. And once they were both in, I covered the whole thing with PVA glue, and this time I used my good one, and then covered it with snow. And so, in the end, I completed my fairy house, and I couldn't be happier with it. I would have liked it if it hadn't taken me quite so much time, but my problem is I just don't know when to stop. But I think my husband's idea of balancing it out by giving it a base really did help a lot. In fact, it's made it so much better because now I can have my Christmas trees and my snow fairy in the garden. And you know, this wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been inspired in the first place by Mary in the Fairyland. So please go by and see her YouTube channel and maybe pop into her store and see her kits as well. The links will be in the video description. If you haven't subscribed and you would like to, please do. That would be wonderful. But even more wonderful would be a thumbs up. That helps my channel so much if you show me with a thumbs up that you've enjoyed the video. Also, if you would like to leave a comment, please do. I try my best to read and respond to them, but sometimes it takes me a while to get back to you. But I do appreciate all your comments. So with all that said, I will say thank you for watching, and I will see you again next time. Bye for now.